Wow, how would you like to magnify your business tenfold? I'm not talking about putting 10 times the effort in, but to grow it dramatically. Not as a financial advisor, but an entrepreneur who's chosen to be in the financial advice business. Well, if you're interested, this is the right first word for you. I'm John Bowen, CEO of CEG Worldwide, and I had the privilege of hosting a virtual conference that we had over 24 speakers, and I want to share in the coming weeks the ones that were just the biggest hits, and also let you know that on February 26, 2014, we'll be running the whole conference all over again. We had over 2,200 advisors sign up to attend the program. It was an amazing event. I've never seen anything like that, and we expect even more in February. So you're going to want to be there because of the great speakers we had and the insights that came out of this. Now, one of the biggest programs that we had attended was Grow Client Income and Quality of Life by a very good friend of mine, Dan Sullivan, who heads up Strategic Coach. It's a great organization. Dan and I've been in his coaching program for 4 years. It actually is extremely complementary to what we do at CEG. It's all about creating tenfold increases as an entrepreneur. And let me share with you some of the key takeaways that Dan presented that I thought would be just so powerful for you. The very first takeaway was the power of 80% for a breakthrough of lifetime and achievement. So often what we do is we spend way too much time trying to be 100%. Many of us as financial advisors, we're left brain dominant, we're very logical, we want to do the analysis, almost analysis paralysis before we get things going. If we can go out and get 80% done and get it out and ship it, if you will, it's huge. I live in Silicon Valley. I got to tell you, that is one of the biggest drivers of success out here. But so often we don't do it. And where this really comes to play is where if you don't just stop because you don't think the 80% is enough. And the example that I want to walk you through, and this is one that's very personal. The very first book I wrote was a Prudent Investor's Guide. And it had a long title, subtitle, but I'm going to call it the Prudent Investor Guide. And it ended up selling really well, and it helped propel my business dramatically, and my partners and I. And we just grew our RIA to $2 billion. We sold it for a number that everybody would be very excited about. And it allowed me to have the freedom to do whatever I want, which is CEG, and having the privilege of coaching top financial advisors. But that turning point of that first book, and now many more, I think we're 10, 12 books, somewhere in that area. That first book, it was so hard to get out. And I worked so hard. I had a writer working with me, and we were putting it together, went back and forth. And with McGraw-Hill, I was working with as a publisher, and their editors. And I remember one of my board members, we had a great board, and the chairman of the board was Ken Cascallo. And Ken had been the head of marketing and sales for Franklin Mutual Funds. And Ken had asked me, John, where are you on the book? You've been working on this a long time. I said, oh, it's almost there. He goes, John, do you feel that it's at least 80% done? And I said, yeah, I think it's probably 80, 85%. And then he goes, when you read it now, is there anything that causes you to cringe? He called it the cringe factor. And I said, no, I think it's pretty good, but I want it to be really good. He goes, get it out there. I'd never had better advice. Dan in the 80% keynote that he did is just huge. By doing that 80% and getting it out, it's oftentimes plenty good enough. And particularly in today's world with digital books, it's easy to make modifications and change. But what we have to do is not wait. There are so many things that if we do it at 80% level, we're really doing a huge amount. Now, in addition to that, the other key takeaway that I walked away from Dan's presentation is the power of delegating that next 80%. And what are we talking about here? Well, if you do the first 80%, getting the initial, going. A good example is a virtual conference. I mean, this was a huge undertaking. I got it going. I put the kind of the initial relationships together and turned it over to my team, and they got the next 80%. Well, that left 20, and we had kind of these slowly pulling it together step by step, but different groups. And what you want to do is whatever you're good at that's going to have the highest value, do that. Do the 80% there. Now, what does this mean for your team? Well, the key questions I would suggest that you ask yourself, if you are interested in growing your business tenfold, maintaining a great quality of life, bringing the right clients, and generating the net income at a level that you are excited about, you got to ask, what's the team doing with all the resources that you have, personal and in work life, to achieve higher levels of productivity? How can we use that team? And this is a great discussion point to have. In addition, how can you get started with the 80% approach? Where it doesn't have to be completed, that you can go ahead and start the project and get it going and release it. We find it over and over again that our top coaching clients, whether it's a strategic alliance with an accounting firm, whether it's a marketing campaign, whether it's a new way of delivering a great client experience, by getting started, getting it to about 80%, getting it started and letting the market feedback be there, getting your part of the 80% done, and then turning it over to your team, or internal or external, to do the next 80% and the next 80% and constantly refining it. That's what we're talking about. If you want to build a great business and deliver tremendous value, this is what you do and how you do it. Now, I'd love to see you at the next Elite Advisor virtual conference. It's going to be February 26th. It will have all these speakers, Dan's presentation. We will be replaying. You don't want to miss it. How can you do that? Just simply go to the link below and sign up and register early. We're going to have some extra bonuses that you'll get for signing up early, so you don't want to miss it. And we'll see you at the virtual conference. Make sure, because by doing that, you're going to be armed to serve not only your existing clients, but all those future clients well. They're counting on you. Don't let them down. Wish you all the best of success.